So percolation, it is the continuous downward displacement of the solvent through the bed of the crude drug material to get the extract. Most frequently, it is used to extract active ingredients in the preparations of the tincture as well as fluid extract. It is the method of the short successive maceration or the process of the displacement. Percolator, it is the apparatus which is used for the percolation purpose, which is the narrow as well as cone shaped vessel both at the open at the both end is generally used. Then there are some process of the percolation or the steps involved in the percolation that are 5 in numbers. First one is the combination of the drug, second one is the imbibitions of the drug, third one is the packing, fourth one is the maceration, and fifth one is the percolation. So first steps involved in the percolation is that first one is the size reduction. As we know that percolation is nothing but the extraction method, so extraction involving the following steps like size reduction. Second one is the imbibition. So size reduction, in this the drug has to be extracted is subjected to suitable degree of the size reduction, usually from coarse powder to the fine powder. Second one is the imbibition, that means during the imbibition the powder drug is moistened with the suitable amount of the menstruum, that means suitable amount of the solvent, and allowed to stand for 4 hours in a closed vessel or well closed container. Third one is the packing. In this packing step, after imbibition the moistened drug is evenly packed into the percolator called as packing. Fourth one is the maceration. After packing, sufficient menstruum is added to the saturated the material. The percolator is allowed to stand for 24 hours to macerate the drug. Next one is the percolation. That means the lower tap is opened and liquid collected therein is allowed to drip slowly at a controlled rate until 3/4 volume of the finished product is obtained. First step is the comminution. It is the size reduction of the drug, usually from the coarse powder to the fine powder, so that to increase the surface area, to ensure the complete removal of the drug, to slow down the movement of the menstruum, and for uniform packing. Next one is the imbibition. Imbibition, that means swelling of the drug by absorbing the menstruum. It is allowed to stand for 4 hours in a closed vessel. It is done to achieve the following objectives, like to avoid choking, that means difficulty in movement, then to remove the air, the third one is to avoid washing out the fine particles. Next step is the packing. After imbibition of the drug is evenly packed into the percolator, then the filter paper is placed on the bottom to support a column of the drug, then the moistened drug is placed on the filter paper, then over the moistened drug another filter paper is placed having weight on it, then menstruum is added and close the lid if menstruum is volatile. Next part is the how to pack, means in which method packing can be done. So there is the diagram of packing of the drug. Next one is the percolation mechanism of action by the simple percolator, in which you can see the lid which is covered, then menstruum which is under the percolator, then wash sand. After the wash sand there is the layer of the filter paper, and in the basement there is the drug is placed or drug is kept, and after that there is the glass wool to avoid the leakage of the particular solvent. Then steps in short, that the first one is the moisten the drug with the sufficient quantity if menstruum, then allow to stand for the 4 hours in a closed vessel. After that we have to pack the drug in the percolator, then we have to add sufficient menstruum to the saturated drug. After that, when liquid gets start dropping, close the outlet, then add sufficient menstruum to form the layer above the drug, then allow to stand for 24 hours, then again allow to percolate until 3/4 of the final extract volume, then press the mark and mix the liquid with the extract, then next step adjust the final volume, and in further step clarify if further if necessary, means last step is the filtration. And the next point is the percolation, maceration versus percolation. Maceration versus percolation. So in that, what do you mean by maceration? Definition of the maceration is the process of making something softer than before by soaking or steeping. Maceration is nothing but the soaking of the drug in a suitable solvent. Then second one is the requirement of the specific equipment. So in maceration there is no equipment can be required. The third one is the time. So maceration, it is very time consuming process that it requires 3 to 7 days. Then next point is the influence of the gravity. So maceration cannot be influenced by the gravitational pull. And last one is the application, that means examples of the maceration like making the chai, preparation of the tincture and skin maceration. These are the examples of the maceration. Then we move further along with the percolation. So what do you mean by percolation? Definition is the percolation is process of rainfall seeping through the soil or filtering a liquid through the filter. Then requirement of the specific equipment, it requires a specific equipment, that is the percolator. Then time, it is having less time consuming. Then influence of the gravity, yes, there is the influence of the gravity, that means percolation occurs toward the gravity. And application, for examples are the coffee preparation, draining water through the soil and removing pollutes. These are the difference between the maceration versus percolations. Next point or next extraction method is the infusion. So infusion is nothing but the process of extracting chemical compound or the flavor from the plant material in a solvent such as water, oil or alcohol by allowing the material to remain suspended in the solvent over the time, or a process often called the steeping. It is an infusion is also named for the resultant liquid. Then infusion, again there is some definitions of the infusion along with its type. So infusion is, again it is fresh infusion which are prepared by the macerating the crude drug for a short period of time with the cold or boiling water. Infusion is nothing but the maceration process, but in this case we can use the cold water as well as boiling water. So these are the dilute solutions of the readily soluble constituents of the crude drug. There are some types of the infusion like fresh infusion. Examples are the infusion of the orange. Then second one is the concentrated infusion. Example is the concentrated infusion of the cassia. Then general introduction of the infusion. These are the dilute solutions which containing the readily soluble constituents of the crude drug. Formerly fresh infusions prepared by the macerating the drug for the short period in a cold water or the boiling water were used. Second point, fresh infusion are usually prepared by diluting 1 volume of a concentrated infusion to the 10th volume of the water. Next one is the concentrated infusion are prepared by modified percolations or the maceration process. Fresh infusion are liable to fungus as well as bacterial growth, and it is necessary to dispense them within 12 hours of their preparation. It is used for those drugs which are soft in nature so that water may penetrate easily to the tissues and active constituents are water soluble. Procedure used, it involves pouring water over the drug and allow it to keep in contact with the water for stated period, usually 15 minutes, with the occasional stirring and final filtering of the liquid. Then mark is not pressed. Then boiling water commonly used as a solvent, means infusion is nothing but the decoction process. So after the specified time the liquid is filtered and dispensed as a drug, and the short time is sufficient for the extraction due to readily soluble constituent of the crude drug and its solubility. Then next extraction is the decoction. Decoction, this is the another process of the extraction in which the water soluble and heat stable constituents of the hard and woody crude drug are extracted out. For extraction of the drugs with water soluble and non-volatile constituents and the drug of the hard and woody nature, the woody and hard nature drug can be extracted with the help of the method, that is the decoction. Then water is used as a solvent and the crude drug which is to be extracted is cutted into the small pieces and boiled with the water for the stated time, usually 10 to 15 minutes. Then previously sliced drug bark or the wood parts, that is 5 parts, is boiled with the water, that is 100 or 120 parts, in a vessel of the enameled iron or the earthenware for a definitely length of the time, that is 15 minutes, counting from when the liquid starts to boil with the occasional stirring. Then to obtain the highly concentrated decoction, boiling is continue until the liquid reduced to a certain volume. Allow to cool to about 40 degrees Celsius and press the mark, and then mix the resulting liquid to the decoction. At the end of the decoction time, decoction is strained through the masculine, and then sufficient water is passed through the strain to produce a definite volume. Examples of the decoctions are cinchona bark or wood that contain quinine. Uses are the treatment of the fever, then malaria, and act as a appetite stimulant. It is also used in anemia, indigestion, then gastrointestinal disorders and general fatigue. Tea making is also examples of the decoction. The next slide will be related to the comparison between infusion as well as decoction. So here you can see that the items, that means plant, menstruum, procedure, time, adjustment of the final volume, apparatus and storage. These are the points, and we have to see the infusion and decoction comparison. So first one is the infusion, in which plant part is used which are soft in nature or soft structure, for example senna leaves. The leafy part can be infused. Second one is the decoction. In the decoction, plant part can be the hard woody structure or the cinchona bark. Second is the menstruum. So boiling or the cold water can be used as a menstruum or the solvent for the extraction. In the decoction process, boiling water only can be used as a menstruum. Procedure: infusing the drug with the cold or the hot water. We have to infuse the drug, means we have to keep that particular drug in the hot or the boiled water in case of infusion. But in case of the decoction, we have to boil the drug with the water. Next point is the time. So calculated as soon as water is added to the drug. We have to calculate the time as soon as we added the drug into the solvent. But in case of the decoction, the time can be calculated as soon as the water begins to boil. Next point is the adjustment of the final volume. So in infusion, there will be the no adjustment of the final volume, but in case of the decoction, adjustment is necessary. Next point is the apparatus. In infusion, there is the infusion earthenware pot can be used as an apparatus, and in case of the decoction, any covered apparatus can be used. Next point is the storage. So use fresh within the 12 hours. Infusion can be used within the 12 hours, but in case of the decoction, we can use the decoction fresh, as well as we can store it in a refrigerator and use within the few days. Next extraction method is the digestion. So digestion is the process in which heat as well as pressure is used for the extraction purpose. The equipment is like a pressure cooker or the autoclave and is called as a digester. The equipment can be used in the digestion process, that will like a pressure cooker or autoclave, and it is also called as the digester. Then extraction of the non-thermolabile materials is more efficient in it because of the high penetration power of the solvent and solubilization rate of the soluble matter of the crude drug due to high pressure and temperature respectively. Next extraction method is the succinylation. We can see the image of the succinylation apparatus, in which there are different parts of the succinylation like condenser, side tube, thimble, siphon tube, distillation flask and heating mantle. In succinylation apparatus, first part is the flask, which is containing the boiling water, that means RBF, round bottom flask. Second part is the succinylate extractor, that means in which the drug can be extracted or packed. Then third part is the in succinylate extractor there are two tubes, One is the side tube and another is the siphon tube. So side tube, it has a side tube which carries the vapors of the solvent from the flask to the condenser, and siphon tube which siphons over the extract from the oxalate extractor to the flask. Next part is the condenser, in which the vapor of the solvents are condensed again into the solvent. Next is the procedure of the oxalation. So firstly, in first step, the drug is packed in a paper cylinder which is made from the filter paper, and it is placed in the body of the oxalate extractor. The solvent is placed in the flask. The apparatus is then fitted as shown in the figure. Then when solvent is boiling on the heating flask, it gets converted into the vapors. These vapors enter into the condenser through the side tube and get condensed into the hot liquid which fall on the column of the drug. In next step, when the extractor gets filled with the solvent, the level of the siphon tube also raised up to its top. The solvent containing active constituents in the siphon tube siphons over and run into the flask, thus emptying the body of the extractor. These alterations of the filling and emptying the body of the extractor goes on continuously until the drug is exhausted, that means normally 15 times. The soluble active constituents of the drug remain in the flask where the solvent is repeatedly volatile. Merits. What are the merits of the oxalate apparatus? First one is it having the large amount of the drug can be extracted with much smaller quantity of the solvent. We required very less quantity of the solvent to extract the larger amount of the drug. Second one is it is tremendously economical in terms of the time, energy, as well as ultimately financial inputs. Third merits is small scale use as a batch process. Fourth one is it becomes more economical when converted into the continuous extraction method and procedure on the large scale. Demerits are, first one is the physical nature of the drug, second one is the solvent, and third one is the chemical constituents of the drug. Next part is the applications of the oxalate apparatus. It is most useful apparatus for the solid liquid extraction in various fields such as pharmaceuticals, environment, and also foodstuff. Nowadays, oxalate apparatus is still common and widely used as a reference and standard method in many laboratories for the extraction of the oil from various methods. So thank you guys.